Good morning. Welcome to Rising. We've got another great show for you today, and let's just get right to it. Joe Biden threatening to stop sending weapons to Israel if the IDF proceeds with a planned invasion of the city of Rafah. He sat down with CNN's Aaron Burnett last night, marking his first interview with mainstream media in quite a while. And yes, he made some headlines. Let's listen.
I want to ask you about something happening as we sit here and speak, and that, of course, is Israel is striking Rafah. I know that you have paused, Mr. President, shipments of 2,000-pound U.S. bombs to Israel due to concern that they could be used in any offensive on Rafah. Have those bombs, those powerful 2,000-pound bombs, been used to kill civilians in Gaza?
Civilians have been killed in Gaza as a consequence of those bombs and other ways in which they go after population centers. And I made it clear that if they go into Rafah, they haven't gone into Rafah yet. If they go into Rafah, I'm not supplying the weapons that have been used historically to deal with Rafah, to deal with the cities, to deal with that problem. We're going to continue to make sure Israel is secure in terms of Iron Dome and their ability to respond to attacks like came out of the Middle East recently. But it's just wrong.
And that's not all. He went on to say this.
I've made it clear to Bibi and the War Cabinet, they're not going to get our support if, in fact, they go into these population centers. We're not walking away from Israel's security. We're walking away from Israel's ability to wage war in those areas.
And then finally, Burnett asked how he felt about being called Genocide Joe by protesters on college campuses.
Absolutely, I hear the message. Look, two things. First of all, there's a legitimate right to free speech and protest. There's a legitimate right to do that, and they have a right to do that. There's not a legitimate right to use hate speech. There's not a legitimate right to threaten Jewish students. There's not a legitimate right to block people access to class. That's against the law. That's against the law.
One squad member from Congress, a former harsh critic, applauded Biden for this on X. AOC praised Biden, writing, quote, Biden enforcing conditions on U.S. military aid and holding the Israeli government to the same bar we hold all our allies to is the responsible, secure, and just thing to do. POTUS's historic shift to include Israel in U.S. standards makes the world safer and our values clear.
Many Republicans, however, condemned Biden for undercutting a key ally's military preparations. Speaker Mike Johnson said that Biden was thwarting the will of Congress.
Is he able to do this without Congress?
Ainsley, he's defying the will of Congress, and he's defying what his own top officials in the White House assured me in writing and verbally before that supplemental was passed, and even in the days since. This idea of withholding weapons to Israel as a condition of somehow, Joe Biden wanted to micromanage their war effort over there, their defensive effort, is catastrophic policy. It would be devastating to our closest ally in the region, and it would go directly against the will of what the members of this body voted on just several days ago. So they have got to answer to the American people and answer to us, and we're on that right now.
And Senator Mitt Romney wrote on X, we stand by allies, we don't second guess them. Biden's dithering on Israel weapons is bad policy and a terrible message to Israel, our allies, and the world. To which Libertarian former Representative Justin Amash responded, we don't second-guess allies is the opposite of a wise foreign policy. We should second-guess everyone. Our government owes a duty to the American people to second-guess another country's offensive military operations using U.S. weapons, which are subsidized by U.S. taxpayers.
Yeah, and it's not about second-guessing. I don't know what that language is. We have a law. It's called the Lee Law. And you are not allowed to send weapons that are going to be used to commit war crimes. That law has been violated by, according to any number of experts in international law at the UN and elsewhere. And Lee himself recently came out and said it's clear that this law is in violation. He was one of the State Department spokespeople was asked about that, I believe yesterday, if not just earlier this week, and gave their typical kind of gish gallop of a response to that.
They're looking into it. They're
exactly.
investigating.
So this is one major question is this a major shift? You heard Biden there say that he's concerned that U.S. weapons are going to be used to kill civilians. The question many pro-Palestine advocates are asking is why now, 7 months into it? We told you on October 8th that this was the likely outcome, that Israel was being given a very long leash without any caveats whatsoever to indiscriminately bomb a civilian population. We know that Gaza is 50% children. We know that 2.3 million people live there and that it's one of the most densely populated places on the planet. And the question was how many people were going to be killed, how many innocent people were going to be killed before America finally said, maybe we're not going to write a blank check for you to do exactly that. And apparently the answer is somewhere upwards of 35,000 people, 3/4 of whom are women and children. And the second question is this red line really a red line at all? There is already an invasion of Rafah. There are already people dying in Rafah. Scott Anderson, who's a senior UNRWA aid worker, says, reported, this is from The Intercept, the IDF is already killing dozens of people. We saw the video of tanks crushing the Gaza sign. You know how many cities have those kind of 3D signs that you can take pictures with. This, kind of iconic image of Israeli tanks rolling over that sign. So what is Biden even saying at this point? If there's a major invasion of Rafah, what is now this new threshold that he's creating in an effort to saber rattle and actually use the leverage that he has? It's too little too late, and still the messaging seems to be too soft.
AOC seemed pleased with this development, though.
I mean, to some people, you push a little, you get some kind of a shift, you feel like you want to applaud it so that there are positive incentives for continuing to move in that direction. I can understand that strategically, that some people in the space can occupy that role. But look, I think what's even more interesting is what Biden's up to this point defenders are saying about him now that he's made this tiny modicum of a shift to saying, hey, maybe we should try to preserve civilian rights. Itamar Ben-Gvir, Israel's national security minister, tweeted Biden Hamas with like a heart, basically saying Biden is Hamas. All of the people who Biden has been attempting to pacify for the last 7 months at the cost of tens of thousands of innocent lives in Palestine, it earned him zero goodwill. They are now immediately throwing him under the bus, talking about why I wouldn't support Biden. I don't even know if I should vote for Biden at this point anyway. So what was the point? What did all of those people die for?
Well, from the pro-Israeli side, they're dying as a result of Israel's war against Hamas. I find it interesting that Donald Trump did speak up this morning, saying, putting out a video saying what Biden is doing with respect to Israel is disgraceful. If any Jewish person votes for Joe Biden, they should be ashamed of themselves. He's totally abandoned Israel. That is certainly a perspective you're hearing from people like Mike Johnson, from a lot of Republicans. Of course, not literally all Republicans. There are some in the more anti-interventionist camp. Obviously, the vote against Mike Johnson failed. I saw Thomas Massey, Republican Thomas Massey, saying that AIPAC just spent $300,000 against him as a result of that. So it's and more than that, he said who's on whose side.
Massey specifically says, "I hope Americans see what's happening here. Yeah. That voting." Not against Israel in any broad or frankly meaningful way, but to simply say we have to follow American law and make sure that our weapons and our money aren't being used to indiscriminately kill civilians, gets you a $300,000 challenge from a foreign lobby. That is what AIPAC is, and AIPAC has different rules governing it where it doesn't have to register itself as a foreign influence lobby like any other foreign country would have to do. How far is this going to go, and is this going to be a wake-up moment for the American people who are frankly disgusted with what they're seeing out of Gaza? Polls show that the majority of Americans for a long time now want an immediate ceasefire. And for a very long time have said that they don't believe that any more weapons should be sent to Israel, regardless of what they think about the merits of one side or the other's
Ukraine
argument.
Or anywhere else. That's the non-interventionist Republican standpoint. It's not so much about telling Israel what to do, it's that we shouldn't be paying for it.
Right. And so what are they going to say now when it's clear what kind of power mobilizes in defense of Israel in the United States of America against the few politicians who are willing to stand up and reflect the interests of the people? Is this going to be a turning point for the power of AIPAC, the power of the Israel lobby, and how they have been able to operate without very much pushback at all to fund both sides of the aisle to basically try to tank any candidate that reflects what is frankly the more popular will of the American public.
More Rising right after this.